Hello and welcome to our Mujeres Por Mujeres podcast. I'm Maria Fernandez. I'm the executive director to EA, Empowering Latino Leadership in Action, and EA Adelante. And today we're going to talk about a very new topic that we haven't talked about ever on our podcast before. But we're going to dive into it today because I'm curious and it's very relevant to the area. And you're going to see why it's relevant to the area. We have a very special guest, Lupe Vidaurri of Latino Development Organization. And we're going to talk about the organization. And so, right now, what we're looking at is breaking the pipeline, reimagining justice through LDO, Latino Development Organization. Okay. And so, we're going to talk about the organization itself and its powerful initiative, working with incarcerated Latinos at the Monroe Correctional Complex. And so, through education, leadership development, and community engagement, LDO is creating space for incarcerated Latinos to understand the system that has shaped them until now, right? And engage in discussions about what needs to change about these systems, right? So I'm really looking forward about talking about this in terms of systemic issues. So we're going to also discuss the upcoming Youth and Justice Summit, where participants will share their experiences and explore solutions to the school to prison pipeline. We definitely need to talk about the school to prison pipeline, um, especially in an area that has had difficulty building trust with law enforcement here. So the conversation is going to highlight the systemic challenges facing Latino youth, the importance of culturally grounded programming, the critical role that community partnerships play in driving meaningful change when we talk about even recidivism, right? So we're going to focus on what it means to build leadership and accountability in a place designed to limit both of those things, and why the involvement of community partners is necessary for this work if we're going to see impact and change beyond the prison walls, right? And so again, there isn't probably a family here in all of the Lower Valley who isn't touched by this criminal system, this criminal justice system, and our families being affected by that school to prison pipeline, or just the sort of profiling that exists here, the history that has existed here with law enforcement. And so I think that people in our community are going to be very interested in this particular conversation. So thank you so much, Lupe, for coming here, joining us here in Sunnyside to have this discussion around your work in the prison system. And so can you please give us a little bit about you, your background, and LDO's, a little information about LDO as well.
Yeah, thank you both so much for having me. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited you're here
to be with y'all. My name is Lupe, as you said, Lupe Vidaurri. I am from Sunnyside. I like to say I'm from Sunnyside and Seattle because half and half. Grew up here, moved to Seattle when I was 18 and have been there basically ever since. And so a little bit about my background. I work for an organization that is called Collective Justice, which is a very small, wonderful organization in Seattle area that is rooted in restorative, transformative, and healing justice frameworks. And we support survivors of harm and violence. And I think when our country looks at survivors, there's probably an image of what you might get about what that person looks like. And it's typically not like us, and it's typically not like our Black and brown folks, but a lot of folks will picture like white women who are needing support from being victimized or harmed, right? But what we do know is that people's first experiences with harm are typically not them causing harm, and it's them experiencing harm as well. And so we support survivors on both sides. So folks who have survived harm, like interpersonal harm, but also folks who are surviving harm inside of carceral settings like prisons. And so restorative justice is this framework where, in our current legal system, it is what law was broken, what was that crime, who broke it, and who gets punished. It's very punitive. Restorative justice is who was harmed, what needs to be done for that harm in order to have as much repair as possible.
Right.
So it's really focusing on the person or the peoples who were harmed and what needs to be done to support them. And so the work I do at Collective Justice is with our program called HEAL, which is Healing Education for Accountability and Liberation. And so we go in prisons. Currently, or when we started at in Monroe also. Monroe is a campus of prisons essentially, and there's 4 different like facilities on that campus with different like custody levels essentially. So we were at one of those prisons back in 2017 and doing that work inside with a lot of folks who organized to bring us in, and that's how I got introduced at the time to the Hispanic cultural group. And the Hispanic cultural group is the prisons will have kind of diversity programs that are led by the DOC. And folks are looking inside to create spaces that are led by folks who are incarcerated. And so, yeah, like, which is really important, right? When folks are thinking about doing programming and cultural stuff, they want it to be they want to lead, they want to organize that, and not have it kind of be controlled by the facilities that they're at. So I got introduced to folks who were part of the Hispanic cultural group at that time. And this was like 2017. And there was a lot of work being done by folks inside to create something that was like by and for them.
Okay.
Yeah, organizing, like there was things that were coming up that were around so folks who are incarcerated here and are not citizens and get deported, they don't GED and diplomas here don't correlate to education back in the countries of where they're going to be deported to. And so we saw that coming up, or folks saw that coming as an issue, and like how can we support? And so they were working with the Mexican consulate to do what's Plaza Comunitaria, which would give them like secondary education that they get to take back and say, I got this educational thing. And it was for Mexico, but other countries in Central and South America would recognize that over they would the US, you know. And so that was one of the biggest reasons I decided to become a nonprofit, actually, is so that those resources can be coming in directly to them to support the groups. Okay. And to really figure out how to bring in more cultural programming for folks to learn about their history. Folks who have been very conditioned in our society to kind of leave behind those things, which like that's how I grew up, right? Like there isn't a ton of ties to where it came ancestrally, because this country is really good about erasing those things.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. We cannot forget that we also have our co-host over here, Vicky.
I exist. Yeah, you're here. Thank you for that, because I would have just gone on and on. We got Vicky.
Yeah. So y'all, this makes me think about, Lupe, this is such a different concept, because what we've been dealing with, people in this community have been conditioned to believe is that more policing means safer communities.
Right.
That the prison system is there for the bad people. And that once you become a part of that system, you are not deserving of resources like education, of like community building, like, really just you're completely erased. Yeah. So how do you say like LDO like helps deconstruct that condition amongst our communities, or any feedback that you can provide us as we're working through our community here in Sunnyside, because it is something that even our own people are conditioned to believe, that prison systems exist, and they exist for a reason. Once you're there, you deserve nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
If policing and prisons were the answer to safety in our communities, we would not have violence, right? Like we wouldn't have so many people who are incarcerated. We wouldn't have prisons or budgets that are going up to do more protection for our communities to keep us safe. Like it's really based on like fear, and this is how we keep people safe, and also the punitive aspect, right? Like we're such a punitive society that if someone does something wrong, you are punished. and that's what's justice, right? And that is what is accountability.
Yeah.
And we think that in our communities too, right? Like, this person did this harm, they need to go to prison and stay there for a long time, or like an eye for an eye, which I get it. Like, that's what we're conditioned to believe. And the work that I do, like at my collective justice and like with folks in LDO, around like healing, like I think about, as a person who survived harm, like, would my healing be attached to the long-term incarceration of that other person? Like, no, like that doesn't bring healing to people. It just it continues to perpetuate violence, essentially, because the person's going to a very violent place. But it's hard. It's hard to like have that concept if you are told that this is the answer to the harm that has been caused. And so, like, how do we support communities to understand that, like, what is like, justice isn't just incarceration, but justice is like healing, and what does the healing mean for you? Because the state is going to come in and be like, I'm a survivor of a harm. This is what happened to me. They're going to use me to get that conviction. But there's not a ton of support that happens after that, right? The survivor, the victim, is then just kind of left to their own devices. And then 10, 20 years later, they're still really deeply hurt by what was happening.
Right.
Because they thought it would be the long-term incarceration that is giving them the justice and the healing. And I think that feels very true in our communities. Like, it's easy to throw away people that cause harm because of many different reasons, without really like thinking about their humanity and dignity in it, and what's like, it's really like, I get it, like that's what we've been conditioned to believe for a very long time, so it makes it difficult to kind of shift the state of mind or to do something different. But that's like what we hope. Like, how do we get communities to like really think about I think when you were talking about like the school to prison pipeline. So I think Anita said it to me one time. It was like, there's and it's like the crib to prison pipeline, because people are born into communities that are already in poverty and experiencing racism and struggling. And so once you come out as a brown, Black person, Indigenous person in this world, there's already prejudice put on you and impacting you from birth.
Right.
Yes.
And so, and I think about how do we also have these conversations with our communities around those things? Because there's so many folks that are like, well, I did well and I did this, but like I didn't commit a crime or get incarcerated. And so like there's just like separation from that. Right. And so it's like easy to think that because I did it, they can, and they're not. So this is like, they're easily disposed. But like, it's this whole other conversation of what these systems and structures have done to our communities that create the conditions for violence to even happen.
Absolutely.
And so, like, how do we have those conversations? And I think if we can have those with our communities, even for the folks who are not as directly impacted by violence or carceral violence, like there's more awareness around it and understanding. But but it feels hard for people to really like grapple with that. One more thing I'll say, and I'm like, wait, what was the other part of your question? But the other thing I wanted to say was, there's a person named Sujatha Baliga who is really big in like restorative transformative justice world, and they often say there's 200% reality, which is, it is 100% true that we are accountable for the harms that we cause. Like, that's true. Like, we are responsible, we're accountable to those we should be. It's also 100% true that we exist in societies and communities where structures are in place and institutions are in place that allow for violence to even happen and the conditions to happen. And so how do we hold both of those things at the same time?
We're constantly having those conversations in
that's
our community.
amazing. Yeah.
When we hear our public officials, public leaders talking about how, the issues are that kids are running amok, that parents aren't parenting.
Right.
And yet, when the only types of jobs you bring into the area are all minimum wage based, and so you're talking about families that have to have 2 or 3 jobs, then you're wondering why kids are running amok. in the
Exactly.
community. So again, it goes back to what you're talking about. It's like these systems create the
Mhm.
conditions that breed violence.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah, Tanya, you remind me of two authors, Ta-Nehisi Coates,
Mhm.
Yes.
¿verdad?
Yes.
And you know what would have been really great for us to have right now? The statistics. Being born brown or being born black or being born brown or being born brown and a woman, the intersections of that. What's the chances already, like once you enter this world that, what are the chances of you being led into the system
Yeah.
or being a part of the statistics around violence and harm? Like it would be really interesting to have those numbers.
Yeah.
Like
We
how
will
much
grab
do
those
they
numbers.
yeah
Yes.
like
Let's
yeah
do
like
that.
what are the statistics for already being born
Mhm.
into a community that has already been um stereotyped or
Mhm.
stigmatized, right?
Yes.
And Ta-Nehisi Coates said it in his book because he was talking about him as a child. And I was sharing the story with Maria one time, where he talks about how his parents were really really hard on him, and like how his dad like beat him one time,
Mhm.
and like he never forgets his beating. But he was out with his little amiguitos, right? Y luego, I don't know, they were all just being kids, right? But there was a shooting that happened.
Mhm.
And once he got home, the dad was like really upset, and he describes the incident of like, the dad was like, filled with rage. He said it wasn't until his adulthood that then he understood why his dad was so upset, because if he was, he's always trying to prevent his child
Mhm.
because he's a black boy,
Right.
that don't get a chance, like they don't get a childhood, right?
Right.
They're already, they say that black. We were talking about this, Maria, how like black boys are like, what do you call it? Like they're not seen as children.
They're seen as adults.
Yeah.
Yes,
They're
seen
seen
yes,
as adults.
Yeah, as
yeah.
So
adults.
it's dangerous as
Yes.
well.
So like
Mhm.
Tamir Rice was a 12-year-old
It-
boy, and he was treated and seen as an adult and fired upon immediately because he was looked at as a
Yeah.
dangerous adult, and he was
Yes.
a 12-year-old boy.
Yes, yeah. So
Mhm.
society already sees them like
Yeah.
this, and so that the dad was really upset because he's like, I'm always telling you, like, be careful where you're at, because you can be at the wrong place, wrong time, and because of who you are,
Yeah.
and in the context of where we live, he didn't want to lose his son,
Mhm.
and so he didn't
Yeah.
understand that until years later. But and then Angela Davis, like I watched this reel on Instagram the other day where like they're questioning her because of her advocacy work.
Yeah.
And the report, the journalist or whoever's questioning her is asking her, well, are you going to make sure there's no violence in the protest that you're going to lead?
Mhm.
And she says just what you both have said right now. She says something like, I am offended that I even get asked that question
Mhm.
when white supremacy has built the confinements of violence for which now we live.
Right.
So how do we not meet violence with violence?
Yeah.
Right? Or how does violence not already exist within this realm?
Yeah.
Because this is what we have known. This is what we have known since day one. This is what we have grown up in.
Mhm.
And this is what we fall victim to. Right?
Yeah.
So it's really interesting how like there's so much connection everywhere.
Mhm.
Back the interview with Angela Davis, like it was years and years ago. There's probably like the 60s.
In the 60s or 70s, yeah.
Yes,
for sure.
Still this day, here's the three of us speaking of the same
Oh my
issue.
God, yeah.
Right.
Tupac, famous Tupac. We got money for wars, but can't feed the poor. Like I think about all these things, right? Because it's like we were talking a little bit earlier about like how much time people are spending on like trying to maintain what is currently exists, and like the amount of time and effort that takes. And I think about resources, right? Like all this money that gets put into policing and incarceration. If we could take that money and actually invest it into communities and create something different and more, or build upon what already exists by all the communities and organizations that are doing this work, like imagine what that could be.
Right.
And they don't do that. I think like there was like this boom in incarceration in like the 70s, and it's the numbers of incarcerated people like over 2 million, and so much money goes into it. And so like but it's not working, right? Like
Right.
they talk about crime and having safer communities, but like what's actually working, and you continue to pour in millions and billions of dollars into this. But if an
Right.
organization gets money from a government entity for 2 years, and they're like, let's see results, and they don't get the results that they
Right.
want, that shit,
Right.
sorry, I don't know
Oh,
what.
no, you're good.
I don't know if cursing is good, but that's pulled, right?
Right,
Like that didn't
right,
change. But it's like, how do you expect actual like deep change to happen when the conditions haven't changed?
Well, I would argue that
Oh,
that's
that part.
absolutely, but I would argue that that's deliberate.
Oh, for
I mean,
sure.
you've got to feed the prison industrial complex
Yeah.
and all of the private shareholders that have stock in these complexes, right? And so I would say that it's absolutely
Oh,
deliberate.
absolutely.
And so when you, and then also there's just this accepted societal norm that, you know, police and law and order are just essential, right? And so
Yeah.
when you have conversations about like where else can you invest money so that we're preventing crime, so that we're mitigating the possibility of that happen, and so you start to talk about investments in other areas like education and mental health and housing and job development, job training, and what people hear is, oh my God, you want to defund the police. You know, they're not hearing about like defunding police actually means making investments in other parts of your community so that you're strengthening those other parts, and you don't need policing as much. And so maybe that person that wanted to become a police officer doesn't have to become a police officer, because we need mentors in the schools, because we need school counselors, because we need more teachers, you know. But they see it as, you know, conversation over because you're talking about defunding the police,
Right.
you know. And so, you know, that is a huge, like, we can't talk about those things because you're going to get canceled.
Oh, immediately.
But yeah, but so I would say that the system is working exactly as it was constructed to work. And so when we talk about our organizations, LGO, EA Adelante, then how do we deal with those systemic problems?
Yeah.
Right. And so, and I want to get into this really important point about your work, Lupe, and that is what challenges are faced by the incarcerated Latino communities, and even before that, what are those challenges that exist that feed our Latina population into prisons?
Yeah.
What is it about our systems that are doing exactly that?
Yeah. It's a great big question. I feel like we have a podcast alone on all the things. Yeah, you know, the school to prison pipeline, right? Or crib to prison pipeline, like the communities in which we are born into and exist in already lack resources up front, the vast majority of folks who are incarcerated. You know, I've been supporting LDO for, you know, since 2017 at this point, and when COVID happened, which nobody was allowed to go inside of the prisons for like 2 years, because it's, as you can imagine, COVID goes in, that can spread like wildfire. And so for 2 years, people inside were not getting any programming or seeing people really, or having visits in a way, because, you know, all the things. But when we came back from COVID, when we finally got back to go inside, one of the things that I was like reminded of in that space is, I remember sitting in the room, there's about 30 people in there, and they do like a little check-in question, and this one was like, name where you're from, and whatever else they asked. And not joking, like 75% of the people in that room were like within a 30-mile radius of where we are now, actually.
Oh, say more about that. This is why this conversation is so incredibly relevant for our communities here, because could you please repeat that, Lupe?
Absolutely. Yes, sitting in a room of about 30 incarcerated folks with some sponsors, community members from the outside, who also, the other person I remember being there is Anita, who I might have mentioned, is also from Sunnyside.
Shout out to Anita.
They, like 75% of the folks in that space were, I'd say, within, like I said, a 30-mile radius of like Sunnyside, where we're sitting right now. So they're from Sunnyside. Like a lot of them are from Sunnyside. They're from Yakima, Wapato, Toppenish, Grandview, Granger. Like, and then the other folks are like from Skagit County, where Mount Vernon is, which is another large population of Latinos that live up
Right.
there. And so it's just like that's impacting our communities. That means that all of those brothers, all those sons, all those tíos, primos, fathers, they all are inside and removed from our communities. And the vast majority of them, I'd say like 95% or more, or all went to prison before they were the age of 22.
Oh my goodness.
And so, and then they're for like, a lot of them are for like in long-term sentences, right? And so I think about how what that could have stemmed from. There's different stories, but they're all very similar. And so they are at a household where they're a single parent because the father or mother died, or someone is not present in the home. The parent that is works 2 or 3 jobs. Maybe they're undocumented and the person has to work even more to support their family, and are not asking for anything because the worry of like being deported or being incarcerated because of those. And so they have to like figure out for themselves what to do. And young kids are like, they're searching for love and belonging. And if they're not getting that from their parents for whatever the reason might be, and a lot of it is because the parents just can't be home. It's not that they don't want to, it's that they're being forced to work all these jobs just to keep a roof over their kids' heads. They're going to find it somewhere. And a lot of those young folks find it in the streets. Yeah. And especially if they're also then being impacted by, I listened to y'all's podcast on, was it the School to Prison Pipe? Or like, I think it was about like legislation with Chelsea. Oh yeah. I listened to that podcast, and I don't know why I mentioned that right now. There was a thought from the podcast that made me think about this. But I think about like, how young folks are in school and they have a behavioral problem, right? And they're like, teachers are like, can't manage this. They get kicked out. Like I have family members who, because they weren't, getting their needs tended to in the ways that they needed, that they act out in ways that then got them suspended, expelled. And then they don't have anything else to, like, then they don't have school.
And that is so real here in Sunnyside. We talk about this all the time with our work with the ACLU of Washington.
A lot of data around
when when we served notice, we found out, because we were doing our research around the school itself, the district itself, and found out that Sunnyside School District has the highest or the second highest discipline rate in all of the state.
Oh my God.
So, and we're not talking about just like sending kids to the principal. We're talking about suspensions and expulsions, right? And so what happens when those kids are suspended or expelled from their schools? What are they doing? And this is like the picture of what it looks like when you're talking about school to prison pipelines, because of those types of policies and practices within the school districts here.
Absolutely. And that's like that for many folks can be just another place in which they are not feeling they belong and they get removed from. And so like they're going to find their access to belonging, right? And because like they need to also maybe support their house or make money in some type of way, like people are going to find the ways that they can make money in the ways that they can. Right. And sometimes that might be legal ways, right? Or whatever that looks like, that then lead to this other decisions that get made that then incarcerate them, because they're stems from trying to make or trying to find and receive their basic needs. Every person.
Yeah, how often do we hear that? How often do we hear that? We're always hearing about, I'm doing what I got to do to survive.
Right.
I mean, that is practically the motto here.
So you succumb, right? Instead of challenging or stepping up to exploitive jobs or exploitive systems, like even the school district, right? Our people are just too tired to fight. Yeah. And like cities like Sunnyside are just a hot spot for school to prison pipeline, or just the pipeline to prison in general, because of social factors too, right? Like I think the average household is making less than $50,000 a year here in Sunnyside. And these are statistics that people can find online. We live in a very young community. I think the average age is around 28, mid to late 20s. And on average, households are made up of like 3 or more people, because folks tend to have family, right. And And so, we talk about the social factors that also lead young people to these situations, because you were just saying that on average, like 22-year-olds have already, they're 22
under two, yeah.
under 22,
Mhm.
they've already had an experience with prison.
Yeah.
So, just considering all of these social factors, people are on survival mode. They're tired. They're working 2 or 3 jobs, and all they want to do is make sure they do just that, survive, and bring back essentials for their family.
Yeah.
And everything else is extra or not priority.
Mhm.
So, communities like ours are a major hotspot to this. So it's
Yeah.
not surprising that you tell us that you're sitting in a room where a huge chunk of the population or the demographic are from the Lower Yakima Valley.
Yeah.
They're already existing and have fallen victim to the prison industrial complex.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's not surprising at all. I think about, like, my generation of people, or like family members who are also impacted by that. And, before young people go into like an adult prison, so many of them have already experienced like the juvenile prisons, and because of like
Leaving the
truancy or
juvenile.
whatever
Yeah.
whatever they deem a thing for a young person to be incarcerated for. Oh, this is what I was thinking about when I was talking about the podcast with Chelsea, was like there was like a mention of like the DARE officers in the schools, right?
Yes.
And so like the
Yeah.
DARE, I remember a situation that happened within like my own family, where the DARE officer, when I was in school, had to come to our house, and like just the trauma in that experience
That's
that
right.
like our family would have experienced. And I think about like people who are having a hard time for whatever reason in our communities, and they're going to school and it's showing up in ways that like, oh, it's really clear this person needs some support or some tending to, but the decision is to like um punitive. It is a
Right.
punitive one for sure. And it's not a knock on all teachers, because we can't expect like the teachers to be the folks that are the ones that are supporting our young people the most. But there are teachers that don't. Like, let's be real. Like, there are teachers that are like, nah, I'm tracking you. You're to this, you're to that. We're going to get you out of here. But, like, that's another condition, right? Like, how do we expect even our teachers to support our young people when they're not paid, though, what they should be paid, when our schools are not getting the resources that they need to support our young people? And so, like, there's this thing about like teachers supporting our young folks, but like how? Like that, like they also have babies too. Like all these things, that's like nobody's getting the resources they need to actually support when young people are going through hard times. And so then like DARE officers are there, they're seeing this, they're pointing you out, they're tracking you, like, and then young people are seeing and experiencing that. And that doesn't feel good. And they're like resource officers now or something.
Now
like
they're
that,
resource
right?
officers, yes.
Yeah.
So there's still police presence within our schools for sure.
Which is wild. Like,
So you're talking about Sunnyside residents that are in the space that you hold gatherings at this Monroe Correctional Facility, right? And the vast majority come from here, right? So what does LDO actually do inside this facility? What gaps is LDO feeling that weren't being addressed before your presence there in the prison for our Latino inmates, and for us, our residents that are over there?
Yeah. So inside the prison specifically?
Inside the prison specifically.
Yeah. So we are at Monroe. I think I mentioned earlier, Monroe is the campus that has 4 different prisons, different custody levels. And so we are currently at the Twin Rivers unit, and then minimum security unit. And so there's an LDO at each location. And then we're also at Stafford Creek Correctional Complex, which is in Aberdeen. And so I go out there once a month. And the needs are a little different in both, right? So at TRU and MSU, there are, I'd say the vast majority of folks there are US citizens. And so their access to, DOC doesn't have a ton of programming that they provide, but their access to those are a little more accessible by them, because MSU is a minimum security prison. There isn't a ton of programming right now, but minimum security, you are going home within 6 years. And so they're finding like we're about to go, everybody in this room is going home. And so like we want reentry support services. We want classes to help support us when we're coming home. And so they're a pretty new group that started within the last 6 months. And Anita just actually finished a course with them, a positive discipline course for young children, like parents got to participate to talk about what is positive discipline, that that is shifting away from like authoritarian, you do what I say, but it's like how do you have better relationship with your children and discipline positively. And I got to go to a little like kind of like the last session where they got their certificates, and it was just really truly amazing to hear the kind of closing question was like, what is something that you're walking away that'll stay with you? And like to hear all these fathers in this space, like naming the things that stuck with them or how they want to utilize this or how they're already practicing the skills to like be a better parent and listen to their young ones is like amazing. And I also say for LDO, it's a Latino Development Organization, but they invite everybody, and they are at TRU, which was the first one that got started after COVID. They have really strong relationships with the Black Prisoners Caucus, with the Asian Pacific Islander Mana'o group that just started, the Concerned Lifers organization that focuses on like there's lots of there's over the last I can't like however many decades there's been like a huge increase in prison population, and over half of them are like long-term sentences, and for violent crimes. And so there's the CLO, Concerned Lifers Organization, that supports like to try to push legislation to support folks not spending their life in prison. It's also much more expensive to house someone who's incarcerated that is older and needs a lot more medical care. And so they do work really closely with the Alliances group also, which is the LGBTQIA plus group at TRU, to build and organize as groups that are led by folks inside together. So anybody can go to the LDO. And so at MSU, that's what they're thinking of, like, how do we get support for us when we're reentering? What does that look like? What do we need? So they're having those conversations. And those conversations happen at TRU also. But folks there have a longer sentence. And what happened, and then at Stafford Creek, I'd say it's a much smaller group, but at least half of them are not documented. And so undocumented folks who are incarcerated experience different things, as one might imagine, as we see in our communities. But inside, if you're undocumented, you're at the very bottom of the list for everything. And so like if you want to participate in a program, and this is what I've been told by folks inside, like if you want to participate in education, then you get at the bottom of the list, and like, oh, the next round I'm about to be up, someone comes in who is a citizen that wants to take out, they get put even further down the list. Oh, wow. And so they don't have opportunities like folks who are citizens inside would. And that goes for the same with jobs. They don't get the same type of access to jobs as well. And so at Stafford Creek, it's really thinking about like how, and all of the places, but like educational things that can support our undocumented folks inside, most of which or half of which also don't really speak English or speak English well. And so there's a lot more programming there that we try to bring in that also is in Spanish to support the folks who are there who don't speak English or have limited English. Very nice. And there isn't programming that's in Spanish at the prisons. I think there might be a GED class in Spanish. But yeah, it's vast majority is in English. And so like providing that in that at Stafford Creek, it's a 3-hour block. So being able to like provide programming in that 3-hour block that's going to help folks is really critical. And then gang prevention and intervention is one of the big things that they talk about, that like that they were seeing a lack of in terms of like how do we have conversations about this that we can then bring to community where we lived, like they're coming from Yakima, from Sunnyside, and they were involved in gangs. They're really like they've been wanting to try to figure out how to talk to educators or folks that are supporting young people about what they would have needed, what would have that looked like, what kinds of supports, like here's what we're asking for, like, and how can we also support you in this to support those folks. And so that was something that they were like missing, that they created all on their own and created workshops and invite people in community to talk about. Yeah, is there
yeah. My next question, how does your organization develop that leadership among incarcerated individuals? Like, what does that actually look like? When, like, if you could give an example of somebody who started with your program in that system as an incarcerated individual, and what they look like when they're coming out of that system and reentry.
That's a really great question. It feels so hard to say that there aren't very many that have come home yet. Like that feels so like truly.
Is that because you're so new into the system?
No, it's because they have long sentences. Like people have such long sentences that they are in there for a very long time. There is a coworker of mine that I facilitate inside with who just started working for Civil Survival, which was, and he and I have been talking a lot about like the lack of resources for people who are re-entering society from prison in the central and eastern part of the state. Because like I've heard people go there are a couple of people that I know that have come home from TRU, but what I hear often from them is like they don't have resources to go. They have their families, but their families are still struggling, impacted by violence, impacted by the lack of resources, and so their fear is that they are going back to the same life and then maybe ultimately coming back to prison because of it.
Right. So which leads me to the question about the role of community and the partnerships that LDO has been able to develop as well, so that reentry is much more possible in a way that's feasible with community helping, right? So tell us about the role of community in the partnerships that you've been able to cultivate. What role do we play?
All the roles.
Yes, right?
All the roles. We need all the roles. Yeah, I think there are so many different roles that community can play in supporting people while both they're inside, that then supports their coming home. And so first I would say, inside I mentioned Edmundo's class, like that is a way for people to like reconnect and get rooted back with their culture, their identity, a healing space. Like that is like extremely helpful. There are folks that come in and lead discussions around like trauma and like people are processing in a way that feels like can be held in that kind of container, like trauma that they've experienced that led to their incarceration or that created conditions that led to their incarceration, right?
Yes.
So people who have like skills that can come in and provide workshops or learning or trainings for incarcerated folks, like that is a big way in which community can support while they're inside, that helps support them when they come home. And honestly, truly, I think Vicki, you said earlier, like our communities, it's really easy to disappear people who are incarcerated. We just forget about them. And I hear that a lot. Like I heard it in a space when I was there just this week, that's like people forget about us. And literally just going in and being in community with them and hearing about like what it is that y'all looking for, what are your needs, that is something that they value very, very deeply. And then I think in terms of coming home, there's again, surprise, lack of resources, right? Like I think about families who are supporting people coming home that don't have the resources, or like people could be incarcerated for many, many years, but there aren't a lot of resources for their families to like support what it means to have a loved one come home. Like I think about and I see when I go in there what it does to a person to be incarcerated for 10, 15, 20, 25 years. And their loved ones are sitting in that and with them, right? But like the reality of what that means when they come home is wild. I've heard stories of people like feeling so overwhelmed at a grocery store because they had all kinds of deodorants to choose from.
Wow.
Right? Like these basic things that we take for granted and is so easy for us is the first time for somebody who's doing this after being in prison for 20 years.
The noise, like even the sun, like we've heard stories, you know.
So I think about like how can families and loved ones prepare themselves around supporting someone who's done so much time coming home. There's an organization called Reclaim that used to be University Beyond Bars that supports like family and like mental health supports for people who are coming home. And so like just as like a community member or people who have loved ones coming home, thinking about what that would mean. And providing resources. There's you know, lack of housing. People will have a hard time finding housing. People will have a hard time finding employment, and just actually being accepted back into community. So what would it look like for like, you know, if there's so many folks who are from our region, like what might it look like to create some type of like biannual, well, like twice a year or whatever it is to host a thing that is like welcoming people home.
Right.
Like even that, right? And in there, it's like, here's the types of things that we can offer as a community to you, whether it's job or here's some housing opportunities or whatever that is. Like here's mental health support or food, whatnot for you and your family, right? Like what kinds of things like that would exist, could support or help people who are coming home into our communities. Like it's just like belonging.
Well, and I think it's probably safe to say that you're talking about a significant number of people that you're in front of at Monroe that come from Sunnyside, that come from Yakima County, right?
Yeah.
And those are not discussions that we are hearing about here in Yakima County at all. How are we supporting people in reentry, right? I remember, you know, a long time ago, I remember hearing that OIC of Washington has a reentry program. I'm not sure where it's at this point, but that's the only program that I've heard of here. So community-wide, we're not having those discussions at all because, again, you talked about like you disappear them when they come in and there's nothing available in terms of resources, and then you throw on that needing a job, you know, the housing, probably workforce training, right? Resume building, you know, where are those? Therapy, exactly. Exactly.
And being able to afford that. Like all of these different, it's
Is it safe to say, and please correct me if I'm wrong or if I'm speaking from ignorance, because I will admit that I would be speaking from ignorance. What's the likelihood of even some of these folks that you've had so much contact with re-entering, not finding the resources that they need in order to re-enter well, and then recidivism? Talk to us a little bit about that possibility. If we as a community are not talking about how do we resource them so that they integrate in a healthy manner for not just themselves and their family, but for community as well.
I think it's a I'd say like an easy thing to assume as a real possibility, right? There's a lot of folks that I've, not specifically in LDO, but like I also support the API group, and I support and heal the work that I do for my job. There's been a lot of folks that have come home. I would say a lot is like 10, which doesn't feel like a lot, but feels like a lot, over the last, I'd say like 5-ish years. And I think about specifically for like my work, the people that have come home have been a part of a community that is really rooted in the transformation of these systems and like communities in the way that we help and create community for folks coming home. And so like, I'd say like, not luckily, but luckily, because those are really dope humans who are doing really dope work in community, but they have that support, right? But even those folks are struggling for different reasons, right? And it could be, I can't imagine how coming into a world after 20 years, you being away from it and all these new and things you have to learn, how overwhelming that could be, while also carrying any trauma that maybe you haven't like done or not done, but like trauma that you had and held prior to incarceration on top of the trauma you experienced while you were in incarceration. And so if folks are not like getting support in those ways when they're coming home, like why would we not be surprised, unfortunately, if somebody is like going back in? Because they are not getting their needs met. They're not getting their needs tended to.
Mhm.
And the DOC is not going to do that for them.
Mhm.
Right.
They're not going, like,
Right.
their purpose is not to rehabilitate, as they say. Their purpose is punishing people who've broken laws.
Mhm.
And while folks find rehabilitation or programming inside and education for a lot of folks, a lot of that is because they inside are doing it. They're organizing to support each other to do that and build those skills and come out of a place that is so violent that hopefully they get to move about as a human being in the real world. But yeah, it's there was a real fear from someone that I remember in LDO who didn't have a lot of those programming that they did. I did this about 2 years ago, and I think they were releasing to um, Wapato or Toppenish, and the deep fear, like, I think I'm just going to be back here soon, anyways, because like their family, they're saying something about their father who was experiencing some really like deep physical, like significant physical health issues.
Yeah.
They have a brother who's still involved in the gang life, and so they're gonna go back to their loved ones and be in the same place. So yeah, it's really, I don't know like the statistics around it, but it's a really real thing.
Yeah.
And the more community resources or people in community that are supporting them coming home, the higher likelihood of them being able to stay out with their loved ones is higher.
Yeah, I think that this is all the more reason why your organization is incredibly critical. Because I remember an old friend of mine, this is years ago, him talking about his own stint within that system, and talking about how, when you're re-entering, like people would have expected that you were rehabilitated in the
Right.
system, right? He goes, and I remember this specifically, he goes, when I was never habilitated to begin with, like, what is there to rehabilitate when I've never been habilitated, because I was born into poverty. I was
Right.
born into crime. I was born into it. So what is there to rehabilitate other than the vicious cycle that you already come from, right? That never left my mind.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about the crib to prison pipeline, that's what we're talking about. So
Yeah.
what is there to rehabilitate if there has never been habilitation to begin with?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the accountability, right, is what the criminal legal system says is the incarceration. Like, they're being accountable for their crimes, but like that's not true accountability. Like,
Right.
and how can people actually take accountability in a system in which they're like at front being, don't say anything. Your words are going to be used against you. Your
Right.
lawyers are like, don't say anything because you will get a longer sentence or whatever, right? And so like even that part, like being accountable, is something that people are like holding and grappling with in these spaces about what does that really truly look like? What does accountability look like? And I was thinking about that because what your friend was saying, it was like the expectation for folks who are inside to be accountable is like, this is on you. You have to be accountable for the thing that you did. The state, the country will never be accountable for the conditions that they've created.
Absolutely.
And they'll continue to go on doing the things that they do and not be accountable to the fact that like these conditions have existed for so long and racism is perpetuated all the time.
Right.
And the incarceration, a mass incarceration of Black and Brown Indigenous folks is like, it's going to continue to happen, but they will never truly be accountable because then that means that things need to change, and that's also a thing. I read somewhere recently too, like that the women's population of incarcerated women has gone up like 200%.
Oh my goodness.
And a lot of that
In
is
the last
like
years?
criminal. I can't remember in how long, but like, and that is in a lot of it is like criminalized survivorship, right? Like people who are trying to escape domestic sexual violence, and they're like trying to protect themselves. Like the I don't know about the vast majority, but a large portion of the incarcerated femme folks is So I think about those things too. And we're not yet in the women's prison it's Purdy, WCCW. But Rudy and other folks inside are really hoping to spread LGO across the state. But focusing on Purdy next so that there can be relationship with, as he said, their hermanas who are incarcerated over there as well.
Yeah. So that, Vicky, go ahead and
Oh, no.
So I wanted to speak a little bit about like Aya's interest in attending at some point. You want to take that on?
Oh, no, go
Okay.
Vicky's like, I am here listening,
Yeah.
taking in all the things.
Okay.
What do you want me? What do you want me to
Oh
say?
no, that's okay.
Oh, okay. I mean,
Obviously, you're gonna edit this, Mateo, this part out. But okay, so I want to go back to community partnerships.
Yeah.
You know, so okay, so all of this that we're talking about reentry. It's really important for us to talk about what role like Aya would take in something like this. This process, this system, and or Aya Adelante as well as two different organizations. And obviously we care because we care about the health and well-being of our community as a whole. We care about the health and well-being of our folks, period.
Yeah.
In our little small communities. And I think that it really warrants discussion with other local nonprofit organizations to discuss if we know now that there is a significant population of our folks from Sunnyside in the Lower Valley or Yakima County, you know, in these prison complexes, we should have very conscious, deliberate discussions around what we have available to help people re-enter. Because the goal of, I think, of all of our nonprofits is to make sure that we're helping move our communities into healing and well-being, right? And so we're hoping to have some presence at some point, right? And so I think that our role here would be in starting the discussion around what that would look like for us. And we're a small but mighty little organization, but it is something that needs to have some deliberate discussion around. Okay, so let me ask you, Lupe, what are your next steps with LDO?
Yeah.
What are you looking forward to with LDO?
Yeah. I am looking forward to seeing them continue to spread the work across the state. That's like one of the big things, and that's a long-term goal. Like that is you know, there's 11 prisons, or I can't remember the exact number, across Washington. Kalalam Bay, Walla Walla are so far out that it gets really hard. Like, you know, we have to build some community in those spaces to be able to have consistency. But it was what I'm looking forward to, right? Was that the question?
Yes.
What am I looking for? Okay.
Yes.
I think, and the other, so Stafford Creek, you know, we have been trying to get Stafford Creek very consistent. And I don't know if this will come up in terms of like asks or how folks can get involved later, but like having more folks be present in the spaces, like that's a really big thing. Like having folks come in and show up consistently, because it's, you know, it can be very discouraging when there is a program that you've helped to get started that you deeply care about and want to move and do work to support your community inside, when there aren't people showing up or limited people that can show up. So I'm really looking forward to growing our community and people on the outside that are supporting our folks on the inside. And I'm just looking forward to seeing how they continue to grow in their group and organize together inside and across the state and with people in community. Like I feel like and I was saying this to somebody, they're like, "You're super humble," but I'm like, I feel like I'm just supporting their work. Like they're leading so much of this stuff, and I'm a person who's just trying to organize with them. And that takes a lot of work. Anita and I do a really big chunk of it, and we love it. It's deeply like in our hearts why we do it, and it's like meaningful, and it's in alignment with the values that we have and the communities that we want to support. And it's really, you know, important to continue to grow and have more folks such as y'all who are like deeply committed to our peoples and our communities, that are involved in ways that feel meaningful and that you have capacity for, so that we can continue to build like a larger community of folks who are remembering and recognizing and honoring the voices of our folks inside, who often get they're even more marginalized because it's just the society that we live in that deems them not worthy of the things.
I so admire the work that you're doing, Lupe, and Anita too. Thank you so much for doing this work and bringing it to our attention, because it was first brought to our attention last year, and we were hoping we might be able to attend, and then we ended up over in Denmark.
We weren't
a
able
project.
to go. Yeah. Well, I do have a question. Since people are going to be watching this, do y'all accept donations?
Oh my God!
What is,
girl.
or listening to this, right? Like, and where do you accept them to? Could they email you if they want to attend the summit?
So the summit, unfortunately, the deadline for applications have passed. The DOC has very strict guidelines on like how far in advance things have to be submitted before a thing. But so we have, yes, thank you for that question. We do have ways in which you can support the LDO. We get donations. We are a nonprofit, but we are literally like 4 people, and Anita and I are the 2 folks that do like the vast majority of the work, or all the work, I would say, mostly. And we have no grants or funding. Like, we're literally just doing the work. And we do get funds, part of our Círculo de Tapatal group that we're all a part of here. We did get a little bit of funding for that group where it's like food supports. Yes. And so we have that. But outside of that, it's just been donations. So, and everything that we get in donations goes directly to the folks inside. It all goes to the folks to do summits, to get art supplies for things that they are doing, which I know we didn't get to talk about some of the other things they do. So many things, but there's so many artists inside that create really beautiful sketches or paintings and work, and we work with community organizations to display the art, and hopefully purchase it, and also like beaded jewelry, all kinds of different stuff. And all that all those funds go directly back to the LDO.
Oh, to get some stuff.
Yeah, to get what they need.
Do y'all have a link? Because we can include it in the.
Absolutely, I can send you the link. Okay. We have a Facebook page. We also have a website and an email address. You could literally do a Google search of Latino Development Organization Washington. We're the first ones that pop up. Nice. Man, you think I'd have that memorized, right? Like www. But you can Google.
I haven't seen what they are doing.
What is it? Same with Facebook. You could just Google us on that. But I know the email address, I monitor our email address, which is latinodev at latinodev.org@gmail.com, which I'll send that to you. So at gmail.com. And if you want to if you're in the community and you want to support the folks inside, I am strongly advocating for folks, especially in the Aberdeen area, for Stafford Creek. We really need a lot of support out there. And if you want to get involved or come and visit and hear what the folks inside are doing and what they're hoping to create and continue to do inside, shoot me an email at latinodev.org@gmail.com. And I would love to set up a Zoom, a phone call to talk about the work even more, and how you might be able to get involved as a volunteer or a guest. And that goes for all of the 3 prisons we're at right now. 2 of them are in Monroe, Aberdeen, Stafford Creek. And then donations are on the website. There's a donation tab that you can click on. We also have a Venmo. Oh, okay. I know. I can send you the link for that too.
Please do.
You can search Latino Development Organization on Venmo, and it goes directly to, will go directly into the LDO nonprofit account. And there are, whenever we have anything where we're displaying art at different organizations in the community, I will let y'all know so that it could also be shared if there are folks that you're in community with here or in the Seattle area, can go look at what's being sold and the work that they do that is truly beautiful. There will likely be a Dia de Muertos event or another summit coming up later in the year. Okay. That's another way folks can come out and see like what's going on, meet the folks inside. It'll be some of the best time you've ever had in your life.
We'll definitely try to go to that one. Do you have a date for the Dia de los Muertos one?
Okay. We don't yet. And we did it last year. I think they're going to do it again. They will do another event. I'm not sure if it'll be Dia de Muertos or if it'll be something else. But they will have another event that we get to invite community to. Nice. And they would love like, again, there's so many folks from Sunnyside in the Lower Valley that, like, being connected with people who are also from the Lower Valley is really meaningful to them. Like, even Anita and I, we're from Sunnyside, but we don't live here. And every time we're like, Sunnyside or Yaktown or whatever it is. So, like, to have more folks that are coming from the places in which they came from and grew up and their families still live, like, that is a lot for folks. It means a lot to get support.
Yeah.
Especially because there's less in the central and western or eastern part of the state than there is on the west side.
Well, thank you so much, Lupe Vicky,
sure.
and joining on this discussion around something incredibly important. Shout out to all of our Sunnyside residents, Lower Valley residents, Yakima County residents that are at Monroe. Yes, we're truly looking forward to supporting your efforts, and I admire so much what you're doing. So, any closing remarks?
Absolutely. I have a couple things that I wanted to share from folks inside and from Anita. And so this is like, so I spoke with folks before I came out here. I'm like, what are some of the things? And so I've shared a lot of what they would have wanted to share as well. And there's one specific thing in here that is said, the dope ass women that have always supported us, sustained us, and are the backbone of our organization. Our love and admiration for our wise Tia Anita, our true sayer, Tia Lupe, the respect and appreciation for all women in our space that care for us. And that includes like their family members, right? Like all of the women who are constantly showing up for the folks inside and supporting them. Because it's often the labor of mujeres that support the folks, right? So that was something that Rudy specifically had wanted to share. And then I wanted to share this letter that was written by another person. They did a workshop and they do a lot of writing. And one of the asks for writing was, what does the LDO mean to you, or what do you want people to learn? And so if I could read something.
Beautiful, yes.
And if you need to like edit out any of the other things I said to include this, please do, because this feels important to me. But this is from a person named Javi, who said, I have been a member of the Latino Development Organization a little over 2 years now. I began attending meetings shortly after arriving at MCC-TRU. I went in with the mindset that this was just another cultural group where people gathered to socialize. And I say it because that was my experience when the LDO was known as a Hispanic cultural group some 20 plus years ago. Needless to say, my preconceived notions faded with the time as I continued attending meetings and listened to what the LDO is all about and the goals they have set out to accomplish. It was more than getting together to catch up on the latest news. There was an agenda in place geared toward helping meet the needs of the community within the confines of the institution and that of the outside community. The most significant being the space that was created to give individuals an opportunity to begin the process of healing and transformation. Two things that from a Latino culture are almost non-existent. We are discovering what it feels like to openly share about the trauma we've caused and the experienced, but kept buried out of shame. Again, sometimes a cultural thing. We are learning with compassionate guidance from our sponsors and volunteers to lean into that which is most uncomfortable in order to achieve growth and accountability. In order for any of us to succeed upon release, we must take those steps now. Thank you.
Oh,
so that was something
that's beautiful.
Yeah. Shout out to this person's name is Javi.
Shout out, Javi.
Yeah. And the last thing that I wanted to share was from Anita when she was thinking about LDO. And she would have said a lot of the same things, a lot of other beautiful things, but
we miss her.
Yeah, Anita. So she says, it's about making our incarcerated populations a more visible group, especially in the communities where they come from. It's a two-edged thing where it is that, and also speaking to those who may be walking a fine balance between taking a step further into the prison pipeline or staying on the path that leads away from that. It's about the casual raising of children by adults who are in or near survival mode and don't see the long-term effects of their kids. It is about folks who become parents too soon and want to reclaim their youth while raising their kids and do it in a way that takes them away from their kiddos and has them modeling negative or at least not the most beneficial behaviors. It is about not recognizing the absolute terror it is for kids to be growing up with so many temptations prejudices and biases from their own people, and unrecognized or unacknowledged racism from teachers and employers and family who know and care for them. Anita has been a long-term educator, and so also deeply connected. So yeah,
That's so
Yes,
beautiful.
Thank you for sharing that,
yeah.
Anita.
Thank you so much. I think that we really need to start looking at this in a very different framework than we have been fed all of our lives about people and the prison system, and this ingrained belief that we do throw people away, right? And come at it from an approach of healing, and that these are our folks, right? And we need to be there for our folks, for our families. These are our families.
Yeah.
Period.
Period.
And so we really do need to come together as a community to help heal all the way around.
Yeah.
All the way around.
All the way around.
Yes. So thank you so much. Vicky, any closing remarks from you?
No, since we started this conversation in Rosarito, and you started sharing about the work that you've done, aside from civil survival, I haven't really had much in-depth conversations with other organization leaders that do work around re-entry and changing the laws, even policy legislation, um, trying to make our legal what do you call it, maybe compass or the legal sphere a lot more equitable for our people. So we are always talking about advocacy and advocacy for our community and leaders, trying to find leaders that would work with us that are community rooted. So we're always talking about community, but we never think about incarcerated folks as part of that. And it wasn't until like you brought it up that it reminded me of that, like we're doing so much work in community, but we're forgetting a very important part of it, and those who have fallen victim of or to the systems that we're out here trying to battle, and many of the systems that we're trying to disrupt. So thank you for reintroducing that, or at least reminding us of your work and how important it is for our work to center yours and to find a connection with it, because we are very interested in making sure that we do connect with you all, and we join any event coming up, and figure out a way to really join forces, because our work means nothing if we're not being inclusive with all aspects of community, and making sure that we identify and we work towards every intersection of our communities too. So thank you for bringing that forward, and to remind us of y'all works is dope, but make sure that it's also centering this. And I can't wait to join you all in the next summit this year if we're able to, and just help you all in any way that we can. I guess here for LDO.
So I'm really excited about this continued
Yes.
connection and building together, and y'all getting to meet the leaders inside, and them getting to meet you. So I'm just, whenever you're out there, let me know.
To remind them, your community is rooting for you.
Here
we are, aquí estamos too.
For sure. They're very excited to build community with folks who are out here doing the work in community. And I appreciate you saying that. I'm excited for them to just to me to go back and be able to talk about this with y'all, and let them know people are out here rooting for y'all, including you in community. Y'all are important. We can't wait for you to come home, and how we can support that not just people when they come home, but people getting people to come home with these. We can talk about this later. I'm happy to come back at another time too, but Washington doesn't have parole. And so, people have a sentence and they serve their sentence. And so.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's another segment. I did not know that. I mean, there's,
And so, it's about how do we also help support law and legislation that is supportive of people coming home earlier than the substance in
There's
which
so
they
much
are.
to learn.
Yeah, there's so much to
Yes,
learn, and there's so much
I
work to
will.
do.
So much work
because-
to do. Yeah.
Yeah, that really struck me.
I know.
when you
Sorry
said
to
that.
drop a bomb at
Yeah,
the end, but
yeah.
I'm happy to chat
Oh.
more after this because I know we're.
I think bottom line is that, we do the work we do. And I think in the work that we do, it really is around trying to have an impact so people aren't led into that direction of
Yeah.
the pipeline, right?
Yeah.
And so it's incredibly important to us. And we are going to continue to have these discussions because this really is important for us. Just like Vicki was talking about, our approach has to be all inclusive. And we cannot forget about our families that are in these systems that do need our attention, do need our help, do need our assistance for reentry. And so we're happy to continue to have these conversations and to be present in these spaces. Thank you so much to our audience for taking the time to listen and to learn more about LDO and our folks that are in the Monroe Correctional Complex.
And Stafford Creek.
And Stafford Creek, yes. So thank you so much. And we will be back around with Lupe at some point in the future. Please
Thank you so much
look
for
out for
joining
our
us.
podcast.
So
Thank you
excited.
all
Oh my
so much.
gosh. West Side, East Side Connect. Hey, did y'all ever see